The Blast 3 is my favorite daily trainer with its FF Blast Plus midsole. And the Metaspeed Sky Plus is my favorite racing shoe with its FF Turbo midsole. But what happens when you pair these two excellent foams together? This is Superblast, and it's out of this world. This is the brand new ASICS Superblast, a shoe that has been kind of rumbling around in the rumor mill for a little bit of time now, and I'm excited that I can finally tell you guys more about this shoe. But before I get to my thoughts on this shoe, what I want to do is go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that ASICS sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for it. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. I've also done a lot of work with ASICS in the past, helping them to promote events, and they've also worked with me, helping me with putting on some shakeout run events, and also supporting my charity runner of the week program, where I donate $100 of my money and ASICS donates $400 every single week to a different charity runner. So there is plenty of relationship between the company and me, and I thought you guys should just know that as you weigh the opinions that I'm about to give you about this shoe. With that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about some numbers on this new Superblast. All right, first of all, the thing that you want to know is it's a 45.5 millimeter stack height shoe, putting it outside the rules in terms of eligibility for use as a marathon racer, but really that's a rule that only applies to you if you're trying to set a world record or win prize money at a major marathon. A big deal if you're a pro, not so much a big deal if you're a regular normie like me. But it is a tall shoe nevertheless, and it's got an 8 millimeter drop, giving us 37.5 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. In this shoe, there's two main components. You got a giant layer of FF Turbo. That is ASICS Premier Racing Foam. It's the foam that we've only seen so far in the Metaspeed Sky series and the Metaspeed Edge series. It's their most resilient, their most cushioned, their most lightweight foam that they have that's designed for performance. Underneath that, there's a bottom layer of FF Blast Plus, which is ASICS Premier kind of everyday foam. It's the one that goes in all their daily trainers now and used into a varying degrees depending on kind of the type of shoe that you're looking at. My favorite daily trainer from this year is the Blast 3, and that shoe is made of nothing but FF Blast Plus foam. I think it's a fantastic foam that has a lot of versatility from everything from easy and recovery days all the way through some workouts. So it has quite a bit of range, and now you're pairing those two things together in this shoe. There's no carbon fiber plate, there's no shank, there's no plastic, there's no gel, there's nothing else in it except for those two foams. On the outsole, we do have some grip here though. We have ASICS AHAR Plus, which is their ASICS High Abrasion Rubber Plus. It's their kind of second formulation of this material that is going to give a lot of grip and durability without adding too much weight, which lines up very well with the intended use case for this shoe. It's not necessarily a racer, it's not necessarily a daily trainer, but it's something that's somewhere in the middle where you're going to be able to do a lot of high quality work in it while also getting the durability of that daily trainer. Up top, that kind of theme permeates as well. We have an engineered mesh that is a little bit on the coarse side. It's a little bit of a thicker material and it's not that stretchy. It reminds me a little bit of that coarseness that you might feel if you're familiar with the uppers on the Metaspeed Sky or the Metaspeed Sky Plus series. It's somewhat similar to that, but in a more kind of durable package, something that you could use on more days of the week than just your workout days or your race days. Still comfortable, and there's plenty of room. It's not exactly a racer fit, so it's a little bit more forgiving than that. And overall, kind of the way that this fits and some of the shaping of it kind of lends this whole package to me, reminding me a little bit kind of like a moon boot the way the whole thing fits together. For the tongue, there is a lightly padded tongue, which does a pretty good job of just kind of staying out of the way, something that I don't really notice. And in terms of extra padding around the heel cup, there's not that much back here, which I also definitely appreciate. They've got these like spaghetti thin shoelaces for the lacing system here, and they're definitely a little bit too long. I constantly find myself kind of like annoyed by how much these laces kind of flop around as I run, but overall that's a relatively minor gripe that I have, because otherwise the fit feels pretty good to me. I went with my regular US men's size 9. This shoe comes in at a relatively lightweight for a shoe that looks and is this big, of 239 grams or 8.4 ounces. All right, now let's talk about what it was like to actually run in this shoe. And I think that for most people, this can be either one of two things. It can either be your marathon trainer or your marathon racer. First, let's talk about how we could use it as a marathon trainer. I feel like this is a shoe that you could use for all of your long runs, especially if you've got some faster paces in those long runs, as I typically tend to do these days. If I have a long run, I like to throw some marathon effort miles in there, maybe some threshold effort miles in there as well. So that means I'm going to need something that can not only handle the long amount of distance, but also those different pace changes as well. And this certainly fits the bill. Typically, I will reach for a carbon plated shoe for that kind of run, but this shoe, even though it doesn't have a carbon fiber plate, can definitely work for me as well. The FF Turbo is nice and responsive, and we're getting that super shoe sensation in this shoe as well. And on the bottom layer, the FF Blast Plus soften things out just a little bit, so that way when you are logging in all those high mileage weeks, this shoe absorbs that impact just a little bit, takes a little bit of that edge off, so that way you could be ready and recovered a little bit sooner and get ready for that next workout. For me, I've taken this shoe on everything from easy paces all the way up through threshold pace, and I feel like its sweet spot is somewhere in between like easy plus pace and just below threshold, kind of like in that marathon pace is where the shoe for me seems to shine the brightest. I really like it when I can get up on the toes in this shoe. I'm more of a forefoot striker, and so like it likes to work in the way that it seems most natural for me. Now, even though there is a bunch of foam all the way from front to back on this shoe, and midfoot and rear foot strikers are going to get a lot of benefit from all this foam back here, I really like the geometry of this shoe, which reminds me a lot of the geometry in the Metaspeed Sky Plus, where there isn't a very aggressive toe curl or a rocker that's in the front here. Instead, we maintain that thick layer of foam all the way throughout the shoe until the way end, and then it curls up just a little bit. And for me, that makes a lot of sense because I'm landing on the shoe a little bit more like this. So the longer you delay that curl up of that shoe into that toe spring or into that rocker geometry, the more foam there's going to be underfoot for me in the places where I'm landing. And when you do that, I'm getting the FF Blast Plus with the FF Turbo working together to give a nice compression and then decompression to give me a nice snap with each step. I do feel like I'm missing the carbon, so it doesn't feel exactly like a Metaspeed Sky Plus, and it's not just that it's a little bit heavier than the Metaspeed Sky Plus or that the upper fits slightly differently. I do think that there is that difference in terms of the kind of response that that carbon plate provides, but I feel like for something that I'm going to take for multiple long runs per week, I feel like this is a shoe that's going to be able to kind of give me that a little bit of compromise where I'm getting not quite as much of that raw, like kind of carbon kind of responsive twitchiness that I kind of like feeling that pop, but in exchange I'm getting a lot of extra durability and I'm getting a little bit more protection underfoot because of that FF Blast Plus layer acts as a little bit more of a dampener and a sponge in terms of the road impact every time my foot hits the ground. I will say though that I do think that because this shoe is so tall that on some turns my ankles are feeling a little bit of that stack height, and especially when I was in some of the gravel and the rocks were a little bit loose, I did feel like this was a little bit of a tall shoe, but by no means does it feel unstable to me for the most part when I'm on paved surfaces or on otherwise packed and firm surfaces. I felt very secure in my footing no matter where I was running with this shoe. Now let's talk about how you could use this as a marathon racer. So I think for those people who don't always respond well to carbon plates in their shoes, or for those people who are looking more for more of a comfortable shoe and more cushion in the shoe than they are looking for raw, pure performance, I think this is a shoe that can certainly be high at your list for your marathon race day shoe. Because of the fact that that FF Turbo is a lightweight foam, and because there's so much stack height underfoot, you're getting a nice peppy rebound while also getting a lot of very forgiving cushion underfoot. So while it doesn't quite push to the edge like a carbon plated racer might, it still feels like a very peppy shoe, and it still kind of has that race day specialness to it that I think a lot of you guys are going to appreciate. I'm not certain that it's not a marathon race day shoe for me either. I'm still undecided. I still have a lot of long runs, a lot of workouts left between now and my next A race, which is going to be the California International Marathon in December. So even though I've got New York Marathon coming up this weekend, I still have another marathon in another 4 weekends after that I'm kind of looking ahead to. This is a shoe that's definitely going to get a lot of miles and a lot of workouts in between now and then, and it may even be my race day shoe. I'm going to see if I can make it work. I'm kind of leaning towards that, using that race as a little bit of an experiment, but we'll have to see as we get closer. Hit the subscribe button so you can see what shoe I end up choosing for that race. So overall, who's this shoe for? I think that this shoe is for those high mileage runners who are training for marathons, who are training for half marathons, that have those weekly regular long runs that sometimes, maybe not every time, but sometimes have some of those pace changes in there. You're really going to appreciate the lightness and snappiness of the shoe, whereas otherwise with like a regular daily trainer or a max cushion shoe, those faster portions, those pace changes might not be ideal to do with some of those other shoes, depending on how those other shoes are set up. So those people that are doing those regular long runs, whether they're in a marathon training block or not, I think are really going to appreciate this shoe. I also think it's going to be a little bit of a shoe enthusiast shoe, maybe a shoe for running nerds, mainly because it does look a little bit unconventional. It is a little bit outside of the traditional running shoe box. So maybe not someone's one and only one shoe, but for someone that has a couple of different shoes in their arsenal and is looking for something different to try for their next big marathon build, this is the shoe that I think you should definitely be considering. Now let's talk about where you can get this shoe and how much it's going to be. Retail price for this is going to be $220 US, so it is not an inexpensive shoe. It's not a budget shoe by any means. This weekend at the New York City Marathon Expo, ASICS at its booth is going to have units of this shoe available in limited quantity. So this might be something that you want to pick up, not necessarily to race with on marathon weekend, because like they say, nothing new on race day, but it might be something that you can buy while you're at the expo and take home as a souvenir so you can get ready for that next marathon after New York. After that, starting December 1st, it'll start its gradual rollout. It'll start to be available in some places, and I think it's going to be definitely a spread out rollout. It won't be an entire global release as of December 1, so you'll have to check in your local market to see when that shoe is available. So those are my thoughts so far on the ASICS Superblast. It's an exciting shoe in a new burgeoning genre of this like super stack height shoe. I think this is a Wild West territory of new type of a running shoe, and it's exciting to see what the brands are doing in this space. I'm really excited, especially about what ASICS is doing here, and I'm looking forward to logging a lot more long and speedy miles. If you have any other questions about this shoe, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?